Welcome back to People Who Plan, the show where we get inside the minds of modern operators. I'm Jeremy Pomp, along with my co-host, Michael Rossiter. Most weeks we sit down with someone leading operations or running planning at a growing brand. Today's a little bit different. Our guests, Daniel Spurlock and Brian Quinn, are account executives at Atomic, and they spend their time on the front lines, hearing what's actually breaking in supply chain teams and what finally pushes people to fix it. Daniel, Brian, welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having us.
What surprised you most about how these teams actually run once you get a glimpse of what's going on the inside?
The biggest thing that surprised me is just how complex it is and how much is going on between these spreadsheets that are spiderwebbed and all chained together between different teams. I guess just having to understand what goes into planning, for example, a food and beverage brand that sells to retail. There's a lot of complexity that comes with that.
From my perspective, it's honestly pretty impressive that they're having all the success with all the heroics that have to go on behind the scenes.
I'm always surprised that they don't buy right away, that they don't sign up for Atomic right away.
Why are you surprised by that?
Well, I'm surprised, but this is because I wasn't a sales guy coming into it and never trained in it. And the first thing you do when you start a company is there's only really two things you do. You either sell or you build, right? You're either developing commercial relationships or you're building the product. And Neil was going to build the product, so I had to go sell it. But I didn't know how to do that. So it was like, wait a second, we just agreed that this is a big problem. There's a big financial impact to this problem. I have this solution that's going to fix it. What do you mean you're not sure? What do you mean you're not ready? What do you mean you're not responding to my emails anymore? Right?
Yeah.
And the level of empathy that I've had to gain around actually like how decisions get made in organizations and what do people accept as either good enough or good enough for now or the art of the possible. And so we oftentimes as planners talk to the planners and they're like, oh yeah, this is amazing. And you talk to the functional leaders like the VPs and they're like, this would be great. And then we talk to an executive and they're like, oh, business impact's really clear. But how you line those things up for the decision to get made is obviously the magic here, because we don't see ourselves as selling something in the sense of convincing people and having to twist their arm, right?
Right.
Clients who we work with, they're generally very happy that they made the decision to work with us. And our job is to be a group facilitator to come to a decision that everyone's like, yeah, it sounds good. And then getting conviction to go and do it. A lot of the planner's job is managing risk, right? And so for us, it's helping them to understand that, you know, the bigger risk is not acting. That's a big part of what we have to do.
Michael, you started out by saying you're surprised they don't act sooner. Do they want to talk to us when a deadline's missed, when a launch is missed, when there's a huge stock out, or when a blow up has happened and then they're looking for solutions? What are the time periods that they're coming?
Like we're doing it's like becomes an organizational transformation. So like, how does that get catalyzed? Yeah. What have you guys seen?
I think from my perspective, it's not any one given thing, but it's usually a culmination of events that lead to a planner saying, hey, this needs to change. It's not just going to take one stock out or one forecast miss, but I think it's just over time when you're spending so much time trying to do things and then you think you have it right and something goes wrong. I think it takes a few multiple events need to occur for someone to say, all right, enough is enough and I need to do something about it.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think the question that brands ask themselves when they're really committed to solving it is, should we continue doing it the way that we are? Because once you have that moment where you have the kind of opportunity costs really identified and nailed down, then it becomes more of a conversation around committing to actually doing something versus the, hey, we can just continue to make this work for the next 6-12 months and kick the can down the road.
What are the stories that brands have told you when they reached out? What have been their pain points?
There's a brand that we started working with recently that is unbelievably efficient in terms of their size relative to their team. They'd recently entered a whole new set of channels to market and opened a new product line. And all of a sudden, the complexity that they took on, and they're already a big business, but this is about continuing to grow and scale. But all of that complexity started to drive stockouts and excess inventory. And the simple heuristics they had used in the past to run the business were no longer working. They had a choice. Do we build a classic 10-person planning team? Or do we solve it with AI, solve it with Atomic? And so we were well on our path now to proving the answer to that question. Other companies that are maybe a little bit bigger have already invested in the team, and the team's kind of holding it together and doing a good job. But then you realize there's this myth, the mythical man hour or mythical man month for the software engineers out there. It's not a linear solution to the problem. Like at some point, people in spreadsheets, like you can't just keep adding more people and more spreadsheets. That coordination costs exceeds the output of any individual person, right? And so you literally can't solve it anymore. When you've got 30 million decision points per month, your 20th planner isn't incrementally going to solve it because it starts to break.
Tell me about the discovery process. Do you come alongside those companies and start to then look for solutions?
Typically, what we uncover is the way that they're working now isn't the ideal way that they would be wanting to work because they're currently limited by spreadsheets just naturally. But when you remove those limitations, all of a sudden it becomes, okay, what can we actually change about our process? What are the levers that we can consistently pull on that weren't available in spreadsheets? And that's really where we help co-design what the ideal future state can look like at each step in their planning process.
So would you say we're developing a custom solution for them? Or we're kind of saying, here's what we offer. Does this work for you?
I'd say it's a combination. We definitely have a underlying system and engine that feeds into the system that we ultimately deliver to each client and each brand. But once you get into the weeds, no two brands are exactly alike. They could be perfect direct competitors. And then the underlying like supply chain, when you get into the weeds, is so different. So there's always those nuances that you have to account for and encode into the logic so it actually represents their real world reality.
We actually go in and do a really deep dive into the potential clients' planning workflows. That's something really unique to Atomic. So it's been really refreshing here to have that focus shift much more onto, hey, what is your actual process and how can we best fit our tool to meet your actual process instead of just taking every brand and putting them into the same square peg.
Do you think that we creating a higher bar for ourselves? I'm curious, just like how would you compare and contrast the two motions of like, how do I, as a buyer of software, get comfortable that this software is going to solve my problem? There's a classic SaaS answer to that question, and there's an AI native software answer to that question. I'm curious how you think about that.
Yeah, I think it opens like a different set of problems or things that you need to work through when software or workflows are more rigid. It's more of a, hey, yeah, yes, no. Whereas with us, it's like kind of peeling the layers back. Like, why do you want to do this? What are you actually trying to solve? Is that the best way to do it? And I think things that can cause just more investigation, but also just things that I've seen throughout the process is like the deeper you get into things and you can just evaluate and look at every nook and cranny. And then just this isn't your full-time job. It just is so much information. It's almost overload and can almost scare you off. So I think that's kind of where we try and focus on what are the smallest we can do to provide the most value quickly.
It's like you're almost selling a continuous improvement mindset or something to say, because there is like for us, a trap in that, right? It's like, I'll keep designing the solution that's perfect for me forever.
Mhm.
And from our perspective, it's, well, yes, that like, welcome. Now we're into implementation. Like, of course, like that's, if you like this, you're going to love implementation, right? So it is, it's like, I'm not selling you a fixed answer. I'm selling you a way of getting to the solution to your real problem.
We've talked about how unique they are, but do they share similarities when they're hitting these decision points?
The most common thing I hear on all initial conversations is is growth rate. They are all expecting significant future growth. And I think they're having the realization and looking at their processes and going, how in the world are we going to support this? So that's the most common thing. That's something I've heard in every conversation I've had so far.
That's interesting. So, oh, maybe Michael, they are starting to see it ahead of time if they know their growth rate's coming and they're looking at that growth rate.
It's this core thesis of ours, which in the pursuit of growth, growth itself creates complexity, but also the pursuit of growth leads you towards differentiation. So more channels, more products, that creates complexity.
If you could give one recommendation to brands out there who are on the fence, who are thinking about it, who maybe haven't seen the problem bubble up yet, maybe you're looking at that growth rate for next year and wondering how we're going to do this, or they know there's a new manufacturer coming online or multiple manufacturers coming online over the next year. What would you tell them? What recommendations would you give them?
I think the sooner the better, so you know what's out there. I feel like there's always a lot of nuance when the right time is, because in some cases, if you know your process, to planning is going to change significantly. Like if you're supply constrained and it's a unique situation for the next 6 to 12 months, you might not want to go out and purchase a system that's built around your supply constraint before you're actually like going to flip the process and be more traditionally like demand led. So I think it's different for everyone at what point it makes sense, but I think it's always helpful to just get an understanding of the lay of the land and kind of what's out there.
I think like a really good example of what they should be doing is one of the webinars Michael ran recently, and we weren't promoting anything Atomic. We were just trying to promote AI in general in planning workflows. So just familiar yourself with AI, try and learn Claude, and just start with something with really small workflows. Can you automate some manual entry into a spreadsheet? Can you automate some sort of analysis or report? Just starting with baby steps and getting more and more comfortable, I think, is where you should be headed. And then, whenever you're having problems, I always suggest talking to people. There's a lot of brands out there that have had similar problems and have found solutions. But I would say the biggest thing is just start with baby steps on AI and see if you can save yourself 5 minutes a day and go from there and build.
I would just give maybe one quick example here, Jeremy. Company I was talking with recently, they are a brand name. You would know them. Like anybody watching this would know them. They have over $500 million of inventory, and they're in spreadsheets. And the reason is that the macro environment that they operate in changes all the time. And so their forecast is incredibly unpredictable, but also the nature of their operating model changes all of the time. And so they're like, we cannot adopt a system because it's going to change. It's going to change every 12 months, and we're going to spend 12 months implementing a system just in time to throw it out. And so they're in spreadsheets, and they're going with Claude spreadsheet by spreadsheet and improving how it functions and making it easier. But it's still fundamentally a disconnected system with a bunch of handoffs between them that plans in aggregates. So our conversation with them is the AI is a dramatically different approach to this problem. And all of a sudden, you can get both the flexibility and control of spreadsheets and the stability, precision, deep data engineering out of a platform. So yeah, I think to what Brian was saying, it's really different, the technology, than a year ago. It's really different. And you should just come kick the tires and like I said, I don't know why people don't buy. Like I obviously think you should, but part of it is just not knowing what's possible now. And it is like so different than what has been in the past.
And if you're listening to this podcast, we have an offer for you, 10% off your first year with code Michael Rossiter, hashtag 10.
Hashtag kick the tires.
Hey, we're going into the weekend. I know I was talking to you guys earlier about some plans you got going on, but I want to know favorite food you're going to eat this weekend. Michael, what are you going to eat this weekend?
Maybe some steamers now that I'm up on the North Shore.
Okay. What are steamers?
Steam clams. Fair, yeah, or some fried clams maybe.
How do you steam what do you do? You cook them outside over a open
No,
fire?
just like in a basket on the stovetop,
Yeah.
a big pot with a basket. You do like broth or just water, or some people do beer. They're very long neck clams. They're fantastic.
Great. And I know since you're in Massachusetts, you're not going to use any seasoning or anything that really gives much spice to it. So it's going to be pretty bland.
Butter.
Yeah,
Well,
there you go. Butter. That's it. How about you, Brian?
Yeah, so going out to dinner tonight, good local Italian restaurant. So most excited about probably chicken parm, chicken marsala. We'll see how I'm feeling once we sit down, but one of those two tonight.
Excellent. Daniel.
Yeah, no big culinary plans this weekend, but I am playing golf. So probably maybe a hot dog, maybe chicken Caesar wrap at the turn. Something like that should be pretty good to fuel me for the rest of the day.
Yeah, hot dogs. And there's not much better bang for the buck there for value.
No.
Really. All right, guys. Thank you so much for the half an hour. Appreciate it. Love the perspective. I wish I could talk to you guys more. I need to sit in more on some sales calls and hear what's going on.
Sounds good.
It's been too long for me. So yeah, invite me to one that I can't mess up.
Sounds
good.
good.
All right. Thanks. Take care, guys.
Yes.